my screen. And so today's presentation will be on Totara 2.7 and a demo on the appraisals module specifically, with the emphasis on the enhancements made since version 2.6. A little bit about Kineo if you're new to us. We're a global learning and technology services company. Some of the things that we offer are custom e-learning, learning platforms, implementation and hosting, and support that the platforms that we put out support both internal, which would represent compliance, onboarding, and other use cases, as well as extended enterprise, which is our sales, end user, product knowledge, and e-commerce, etc., or both of those. We also offer blended programs such as leadership training solutions, and we also offer learning and learning technology consulting, as well as the product training for those that we support. So that's a little bit about Kineo. The platform's demo team, if you've been part of the series at all, you'd be familiar with these names, but we have Taylor, Susan, and myself. We represent the platform's demo team here at Kineo US. Just give you a little picture of who we are and some of the names. The agenda that I put out is to do a brief overview of Totara appraisals in general for anybody that might be a little bit new or wants to be updated on kind of how it's supposed to work. Then I'm going to move into a demonstration of the key enhancements that were made from 2.6 to 2.7. And then I'd like to answer any attendee questions about the improvements specifically. And then if any time permits, I will try to answer any additional questions about Totara appraisals in general. That's where we're headed today. Let me pull up the start of the demo. So I'm going to log into a demo site that Kineo has here as an administrator to start the dialogue. When I land here, I have an appraisals menu item, which is available to all users if appraisals is turned on. Appraisals was released in version 2.5 to address the need for a performance management tool in Totara. Appraisals has always been a part of the core code and subscription services since its release, so it's not a separate thing that you'd add. It comes with the installation since 2.5. It's designed to handle the assignment, workflows, messaging, and reporting for what the industry would call, performance reviews. And this module is more of a complement to the primary learning management functionality that was available prior to 2.5 and since 2.5 as well. When I hover on the appraisal menu here, I also have something called goals. So goals is actually a separate module as well that can be used independently or in conjunction with appraisals. But either way, it does fall within the appraisals menu and as a sub-menu item of it. I'm going to show you where appraisals is enabled at the administrator level in the advanced features. There is an enable appraisals option here, and by default it will be show. You can hide or disable this. Hide will remove it from anyone seeing it, and disable will allow admins to see it but no one else to use it during that time. You can see that goals is right above it here. So again, you could do the same thing. You could hide or disable this depending on your use case, but it will default to show on any new installations. So that's where we set it up. To touch on goals very briefly, they are set up in the hierarchy section. There is goals here, and if I click on manage goals, I can see I need to add a framework, which is just like positions, organizations, and competencies that have been available for some time. I have to set up a framework, but I can have multiple frameworks. I can have types, and I can have multiple types if I desire. And in addition, something that's not on the others would be this goal scale, which is unique to goals specifically. To show you just a brief overview of what goals are, you can see I have company goals and personal goals. Personal goals being the ad hoc type, where I can come in here and just add one whenever I want to, and it can be relatively, it's free form. Where company goals are going to be required to be in the framework and set up by an administrator ahead of anybody using that. In general, goals are designed to be focused on business level or personal achievement, as opposed to learning objectives, which would be more likely housed in the Totara learning plans area. You can use elements of both learning plans, so objectives, courses, programs, competencies, as well as goals when you are using the appraisal module, so you can pull them in and actually reference information within the appraisal itself. So it's helpful to understand how goals could also be used in addition to learning plans when you're thinking about implementing appraisals into your site. So that wraps up the overview. So I'm going to move into the enhancements made to the 2.7 appraisal module. I think that some of the enhancements they've made will meet more of the business requirements that some of the clients have been looking for. In my opinion, the biggest improvement with the largest impact is the introduction of dynamic appraisals. On 2.5 and 2.6, appraisals were locked and remained static once they were activated by an administrator, and that is now a feature that can be allowed or disallowed. And that is done within the site administration advanced features as well. So very near the enable appraisals, we have something called dynamic appraisals now. By default, this is set to yes on a new 2.7 installation. If you upgrade from 2.6 to 2.7, this will be defaulted as no, since this was not available on 2.6. And this setting, it should be noted, is not available on an appraisal by appraisal basis, meaning it's site-wide. It will apply to every appraisal that you set up. So I'm now going to go in and take a look at administrating appraisals themselves. So in the appraisal section of the site admin, under Manage Appraisals, I've got a various number here that I've been tweaking with in order to provide the demo here today. I'm just going to pull this one up as an example. So if I come into the assignments, this is one that is already active. You can see that here by my only option being close. Previously, I could not add additional assigned user groups once I had activated the form, which in this case I can. I cannot remove the one that I have added, but I can add additional assigned user groups as necessary, which would encompass another audience, an organization, or a position that I want to add to this appraisal. And the other aspect of that dynamic feature is that within this audience itself, so this appraisal demo audience I've set up, anybody that gets added to this in the future, as long as the appraisal is still open, will be added to the appraisal. So those are the two dynamic features that were not available previously that are now available in 2.7. So I can show you here, just to add a position, I would come in, choose from my different positions that are available. I'll just pick General Manager as an example. So you can see when I actually picked two on accident, but when I picked these two, I can click to update that. And when I did that, I just assigned this group of people this particular appraisal. So that's a nice feature to have. Allows a lot more flexibility within the appraisals and the use and assignment than we had previously. So I'm actually going to come in here and I'm going to add a new appraisal for our live demo. And I'm just going to copy one that I already have. just to show you how this might work. I'll save my changes. I could come in and change my content of the actual appraisal, so the questions and stages that will be put out there. I could come into the assignment. In this case, since I have not yet activated this new version, I can remove this audience if I'd like to. So that's not locked down yet until I do that. And I can see based on this audience, it's only going to assign to one person, which is myself, as part of the audience at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and activate this, and it gives me a little message. It says I can't change my content after it's created, so I said okay. And I am good to go. So you saw that the live demo was only assigned to one person here, and that was Justin, as he was the only person as part of that audience. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to update a user named Taylor, and I'm going to add her to the criteria that meets that audience I have set up, and I'm going to show you how it adds an additional person after activation. So bear with me a second while I pull up her record and make that change. So the audience I'm using currently has the department equal to Kineo, so I'm going to update her profile. And it would require sync to run to update the audience, but I'm doing that like every minute at the moment, so it should be relatively real time. And once that completes, I should be able to log in as Taylor and see the assignment. So there we go. So again, cron has to run, which is running very frequently for myself here on the site, but I already have the live demo showing. And again, that was after activation, showing you the new feature that's available on 2.7. In reference to 2.6, if you're using that today or have been looking at it on 2.6, the assignment groups were completely fixed, which we can now add additional assignment groups, just not edit the ones that currently exist. And anybody that was in an audience position org at the time of activation, nothing happened afterward. So if a new user was added to a position and that position should have been assigned the appraisal, it wouldn't do that anything, and now it can do that. So the other feature that comes along with dynamic appraisals that I have enabled here is the ability to update roles within an appraisal. So I will show you here on a different record. So I have a user named Justin. If I come into the appraisal, here's my live demo that was assigned to my audience. I can see here's my name, here's my manager, Jack Graham. And previously, these roles were fixed, which would be manager, manager, and appraiser once it was activated. And in fact, you couldn't activate it for a particular user if any roles were empty, such as this, which is now just a warning. It does not stop you from that. The caveat would be if the appraiser needs to do something in order to progress through that appraisal for that person or to complete it in general, you're going to impede progress. But it's changed the assumption that we'll go ahead and let it be opened. It just won't be able to be completed if that role is necessary to do so. In the interest of demoing this change, I'm going to assign Justin a new manager. I'm going to show you how it quickly updates and will change who's assigned to this appraisal. So let me find Justin. So So I come into the profile, and this likely would be done through the HR import or Totara sync, possibly, but I'm going to go ahead and do it manually. Assign it to a person named Adria. Save that. So as soon as cron runs, my changes should be applied. So I'll come back in. It may take us just a minute. You can see here's a good example. See how this role is due to change. So immediately it tells me that something is going to happen to that, even though it actually hasn't happened until the cron runs. I think next time I come in here, it probably will be a minute past when the cron is set to kick off for this site, and hopefully they will have changed. Not yet. So let me give that just a few seconds. In the meantime, any users that are assigned after appraisal activation will not have any overdue stage reminders sent. So this is the fact that stages and overall appraisals have a fixed date, and that is still the same. There's no relativity to when the user gets assigned the appraisal as to when it's actually due or any of the stages within that form are due. So I think that's a bit of a limitation at the moment, but that's just how it is. So I wanted to note that in case you should have that as a consideration in your requirements. So you can see now it's made that change. So cron is run, it's picked up my new manager, and you can actually see that not only did my manager change, but so did the manager's manager, because that's up the management hierarchy, and thus would it impact both of those positions. And that is available with dynamic appraisals as well. If you complete a an appraisal, it will not change the roles that were assigned during that, for the obvious reason that it wouldn't impact the future use. So I'm going to log in as a user that had completed a form and then had their manager changed. And you can see on this appraisal, Rose Torres has Ann Robinson as her current manager. This is an open appraisal. But on the version that I completed here, Jack Graham is showing as my manager. So just to demonstrate that once it completes, it will stay with the original completion users there. So if you have an open appraisal or if you have an open appraisal that has not yet been completed, I'm going to show you another feature of the dynamic setting. So if I go in and find my user Taylor again, we saw just a bit ago how she was assigned that new appraisal because she was added to the audience that was assigned to it, even though it was after activation when she was added to the audience. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to now remove her from that audience, which would imply that she no longer needs to do that appraisal or should be assigned that appraisal. And I'm going to show you how that works. So I'm removing Kineo from the department, which qualifies her for the audience, which should assign her the appraisal form. And I'm going to log in as her and show you what that looks like. Okay, so it hasn't quite updated yet, so let me give it a second. Again, cron needs to be running for these things to update. give that a second. So in the meantime, some notes about the things I've just talked about. Appraisals are no longer closed by the system automatically when all the users that have been assigned have completed it, which it did previously. So this essentially allows appraisals to be left open indefinitely. They can still be closed by an administrator at any time, but once they are closed, they cannot be reopened by anybody. Appraisals can now be opened for users who don't have a specific role defined, where I showed you my appraiser is empty, which previously would not allow you to do so. But there will be impeded progress or completion if that user was required to do something. And that the role changes I showed you, like the manager and the manager's manager, will apply to all open or closed appraisals. A closed appraisal is not a completed appraisal. It was closed prior to completion. So it will shift all of those. And another note is changing the learner's manager to a temporary manager, which is a relatively new feature to Totara. Does not give the temporary manager access to complete that appraisal, nor does it allow them to get access or do anything with a new appraisal that might be granted during their time as the temporary manager. So essentially, the temporary manager does not get access at any time to the appraisal process. I just wanted to note that. So let me go back in as Taylor and see if this is updated yet. Yeah, there we go. So you can see this live demo. It was open for me when I first assigned it at the beginning of this demo. It's now closed because I was removed from the audience that had this assigned. And so I can come in here, I can look at it, my manager can look at it, but nothing can be done to edit or complete this form. Keynote is the relative dates are still not available in overall and stage completion dates. No messages will be sent to users that are activated or assigned after activation. Therefore, they don't get any potential false information about when their stage was actually due. Perhaps a future enhancement by Totara or a customization done by a partner or our clients may be useful in making that work similar to the way programs work today, which is you can have some relative dates applied. There were no changes made to the messaging options. So when I go into manage an appraisal, there are some various messaging options. I didn't add any before I activated it. None of those have changed, so there's no reason to spend any significant time on it. They did, however, add one content area improvement, and that's a non-question element called Aggregate rating questions. So what that is, this is what I'm talking about here, aggregate rating questions, is the ability to supply a summation of the ratings questions provided on a previous page. So within each stage, which is up here, we have pages. My two are manager's evaluation and total. So on the manager's evaluation page, I have a couple numeric scales here, and I have a custom scale that's also numeric. Those will all be added together on this total page. So that's a new feature that was set up and that is available. You can't tell the system which numeric ratings you want to total and which ones you don't. So there's a little bit of a limitation there. So you can't get picky in which ones you want to do that for. The aggregations are on a role-by-role basis, so you'll have your manager total, you'd have your manager's manager total, and your appraiser total, and your learner's total if they're doing one. They're not combined in any manner. And the aggregation can also include a mean and median value if desired. So you can get that information as well. I'll show you what that looks like to an end user here. So I'm viewing this as a learner. You can see these are the manager scores that I received here. And then in the total page, I don't have access to this at the moment. Let's see. See if I can get in as the manager real quick. Yeah, here we go. So here's my employee's total rating that I set up as a separate page, and you can see I have my average score and my median score showing there. I can get a report on the scores as well in the core report area. So if I open this appraisal detail status report for the version that I have that data on, you can see for Rose Torres that I just showed you, it gives me the overall total manager score here. So I can pull that on reports as well. All right, so that's the completion of the demo portion. Let's see if I can answer a few questions really quick. So Susan asked, yes, any people added to the position, organization, or audience would be added to the appraisal at the next appraisal cron run after the audience run, if that makes sense. So there's 2 cron jobs that would have to run, but yes, those will happen. And Susan also asked if the user dropped from an audience, what would happen, and it will close unless it's completed, unless they were assigned that same appraisal in a different audience or position by chance, but that would be the exception. I don't see any other questions. I don't know, Sabrina, if you see any other questions out there.
Nope, I don't see any other questions either.
Okay, so I don't see any other questions. If anybody on the webinar or that watches the recording later has any questions regarding 2.7 appraisals or appraisals in general, feel free to reach out to Kineo US, and either our sales or support teams can try to provide clarification for you. Thanks for attending, and have a good day.